The first mistake the Carrion Dominion made about humanity was assuming silence meant weakness. The second mistake was assuming laughter meant ignorance. The Carrion exploration fleet entered the Sol Fringe without resistance. No alarms, no patrols, no dramatic last stand, just empty space and a single human research station orbiting a dull red dwarf star. Admiral Threx of the Dominion observed the station from the bridge of his flagship, Claw of Eternity, his four eyes narrowing in mild disappointment. "That's it?" he asked. His tactical officer adjusted the sensor feed. "Yes, Admiral. One station. Minimal power output. No visible weapons. Primitive hull composition." Threx let out a low clicking sound, Carrion body language for amusement. "So this is the species the scouts warned us about?" "Yes, Admiral. Humans, recently discovered. Limited interstellar presence. Erratic political structures. High internal conflict rate." The Admiral leaned back, claws tapping against the command throne. "Ah," he said, "another loud, violent species that burns itself out before it ever matters." The bridge crew relaxed. This was familiar. Too familiar. The Dominion had absorbed or erased hundreds of civilizations like this. Species that rushed into space before understanding their place in the galaxy. Species that mistook ambition for power. "Open a channel," Threx ordered. "Let's introduce them to reality." On the human station, Kepler Outpost 7, Dr. Elias Monroe was halfway through explaining gravity anomalies to a bored intern when the lights flickered. "Was that?" the intern began. "External power fluctuation," Monroe said calmly, checking his wrist display. "Or someone just punched the universe again. Hard to tell." The communications console chimed. Unidentified incoming transmission. Monroe sighed. "Of course." The hologram activated, projecting the towering armored form of Admiral Threx. The Carrion looked like a nightmare sculpted out of metal and muscle, ceremonial blades lining his armor. The intern's eyes widened. Dr. Monroe?" Monroe took a sip from his mug. "Yes?" That doesn't look like a survey team." "No," Monroe agreed. "That looks like a civilization that thinks intimidation is a personality." The alien spoke, his voice translated instantly. "Attention, unidentified human structure. You are in territory claimed by the Carrion Dominion. Power down your station and prepare for inspection. Compliance will ensure your survival." Monroe tilted his head. "Inspection?" he repeated. "That's interesting." Threx watched closely. Humans were supposed to panic, or posture, or threaten. Instead, Monroe smiled. "Before we do that," Monroe said, "can I ask a quick question?" The Admiral hesitated. "Proceed." "How long ago did your civilization invent faster-than-light travel?" Threx straightened. 9,000 standard cycles ago. Why? Monroe nodded slowly, as if confirming a guess. "Okay, that explains the design choices." The intern stared at him. "Sir." "Quiet," Monroe whispered. "I'm being educational." Threx's mandibles twitched. "You will explain yourself." "Oh, sure," Monroe said cheerfully. "It's just that your ship's field harmonics are... how do I put this politely?" He leaned closer to the console. "Very loud." The bridge of the Claw of Eternity fell silent. "What?" Threx snapped. "You're broadcasting on at least 12 detectable subspace layers," Monroe continued. "It's like watching someone try to sneak while banging pots together." The Carrion sensor officer leaned toward Threx. "Admiral, our stealth field is active." Threx ignored him. "Human, you are in no position to comment on Dominion technology." Monroe shrugged. "Fair. We used something similar back when we were still afraid of cosmic background radiation." The intern covered his mouth to hide a laugh. Threx felt something unfamiliar crawling up his spine. Annoyance. "Enough," the Admiral growled. "You will comply, or you'll destroy the station," Monroe finished. Yes, we've heard the speech before." He tapped a control, pulling up a star map. "Look, Admiral Threx, was it? This station isn't important. It's mostly interns and bad coffee. If you want to conquer humanity, this is a weird place to start." Threx snarled. "Conquer? No. Absorb. Your species will serve." Monroe raised an eyebrow. Serve doing what? Industry, labor, military auxiliaries. Ah, Monroe said. So slavery with better branding. The Carrion Bridge erupted in angry clicks. That's enough, Threx barked. Weapons online. On Kepler Outpost 7, alarms finally began to sound. The intern panicked. They're powering weapons. Monroe glanced at the readout. Huh. Plasma accelerators. Old school. Old, the intern shouted. Comparatively, Monroe said. Don't worry. He pressed a button. Somewhere far deeper than the station's visible structure, something woke up. The Dominion's weapons officer spoke. Admiral, we have a firing solution. Fire one shot, Threx ordered. A warning. The plasma bolt streaked across space, bright, violent, final. It hit the human station and disappeared. No explosion, no damage. The bolt simply ceased. Threx froze. What happened? Unknown, the weapons officer stammered. The energy, it vanished. Monroe squinted at his console. Huh, it bounced into the tertiary containment loop. The intern stared. You mean the... Yes, Monroe said. The one we used to stabilize the coffee machine. He looked back at the hologram. Admiral, I'm going to need you to stop firing. You're messing with our experiments. Threx's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. Explain. Now. Monroe hesitated. Then he smiled apologetically. Okay, look, this is where things get awkward. He gestured, and the station's outer hull shimmered, layers unfolding that sensors had never detected. Humanity didn't rush into the galaxy, Monroe said. We watched it. Threx felt cold. We mapped empires before they mapped us, studied first contacts, learned which species attacked the unknown, and which ones asked questions. You are lying, Threx said weakly. Monroe shook his head. We just didn't think you were ready. Ready for what? For the truth. Behind Monroe, the station's walls parted, revealing something impossible. Space, folding inward, dimensions overlapping like stacked pages. The intern whispered, Sir, Central Intelligence is asking if it can say hello. Threx backed away from the hologram. What are you? Monroe met his gaze. Tired, he said honestly, and a little disappointed. He leaned forward. Because if you'd waited, asked, or even listened, this conversation would have gone very differently. Alarms blared on the claw of eternity. Admiral! The sensor officer screamed. Something just appeared behind us. No. Around us. No. Inside our sensor range. Threx turned. Space itself was moving, and for the first time in 9,000 cycles, Admiral Threx realized the Dominion had not discovered a primitive species. They had wandered into the territory of something that had been quietly deciding whether the galaxy was worth saving. The Carrion Dominion had a saying carved into the first stone of their first conquered world. If it can be seen, it can be owned. Admiral Threx had lived by it. Now his sensors were screaming about something that could not be seen, only felt, like a pressure behind the eyes. Put it on screen, he ordered, voice sharp enough to cut fear into discipline. The tactical display showed nothing at first. Then the stars shifted, not in position, not in brightness, in meaning. Constellations rearranged themselves as if someone had reached into the sky and nudged the universe sideways. One of the junior officers whispered a curse. Admiral, the sensor officer said, throat tight. We are detecting gravitational distortions, multiple. They appear to be structured. Structured like what? Threx demanded. The officer swallowed. Like machinery. That should have been impossible. Gravity was not a tool, it was a rule. Yet, it was happening. The distortions moved in patterns, circles inside circles, like a net being thrown around the Dominion fleet without ever touching it. Threx's claws tightened on the command throne. Weapons online, full spread, fire into the distortions. Admiral, the weapons officer said cautiously, we do not have a target. Fire. The Dominion flagship released a storm of plasma and lances of coherent light. The volleys streaked outward and struck nothing, not because they missed, because they passed into regions of space that no longer behaved like space. The beams bent, warped, then folded inward, vanishing as if swallowed. A murmur ran across the bridge. Threx stood slowly, his decorated armor seeming heavier than it had a minute ago. Open channel to the human station. On Kepler Outpost 7, Dr. Elias Monroe was now standing in front of a sealed blast door labeled, "Do not open unless you want paperwork." The intern, Jay Patel, according to the badge that never stayed straight, hovered behind him like a shadow. "Dr. Monroe," Jay whispered, "are we okay?" Monroe looked at the flashing console. "We're okay," he said. "The question is whether they are going to be okay." The hologram returned. Admiral Threx appeared less like a nightmare now, and more like someone who had just realized the universe contained rules he didn't vote for. "You are interfering with Dominion operations," Threx said, forcing steadiness. "Cease immediately. Identify your military assets." Monroe sighed like a man who had been asked to explain the same joke for the 8th time. "I'm not military," Monroe said. "I'm a research director, technically." "That station," Threx snapped, "just absorbed Dominion plasma." Monroe winced. "Right. Sorry about that. We have very aggressive containment fields." Threx leaned closer. "Explain. What technology is that?" Monroe hesitated, and for a brief moment, he looked older, tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. "That," he said softly, "is the reason we didn't announce ourselves." Threx's eyes narrowed. "Your species fears retaliation?" "No," Monroe said. "We feared responsibility." Jay blinked. "Sir?" Monroe glanced back at the intern. "It's complicated." He faced Threx again. "Admiral, your empire expands because you believe strength is measured by how easily you can break something," Monroe said. "Our biggest cultural achievement was learning that breaking things is the easy part." Threx's mandibles flared. "Enough philosophy. Give me terms. Surrender, inspection, or you'll do what?" Monroe asked, still calm. "Blow up the station. That would be inconvenient, mostly for your career." A few Carrion officers hissed at the insult. Threx's voice dropped. "Human, do you understand who you are speaking to?" Monroe smiled faintly. "Yes," he said. "That's the problem." He tapped his wrist. "Kepler, patch me through to Earth. Priority, gray." Jay's eyes widened. "Sir, that's—" "I know what it is," Monroe said, "and I don't like it, but we're past preferences now." The station's lights dimmed to a deep, quiet blue. On Threx's side, his communications officer flinched. "Admiral, their transmission is creating interference in our systems." "It's a simple call," Threx said. "How could it?" Then the human station broadcast a single phrase, 5 words, translated perfectly into Carrion. "Protocol quiet is no longer optional." Every Carrion screen flickered. For half a second, Threx saw something else on his tactical display, a lattice of dots surrounding his fleet. Not ships, not mines, not satellites, positions. As if the humans weren't tracking vessels, they were tracking space itself. 000, SO 06, the Dominion's first panic. The Carrion. Dominion had not panicked in generations. Panic was for prey, but panic is not a feeling. It is a decision the body makes when the mind cannot. "Admiral," the science officer said, voice shaking, "they are rewriting local physics." Threx's throat went dry. No empire could survive an enemy that treated reality like editable text. "Retreat," Threx ordered, a beat of silence. "Admiral," the navigation officer whispered, "our hyperspace gate won't open." Threx turned on him so hard the officer recoiled. "What do you mean it won't open?" We're receiving a denial signal." "A denial signal," Threx repeated, incredulous. "To hyperspace." "Yes." The entire bridge stared at the void, because in the space where their exit should have been, there was now a faint shimmer, like a transparent wall. A human voice filled the bridge speakers, not Monroe's, colder, larger, less like a person speaking and more like a system announcing weather. "Dominion fleet, you are contained." Threx's heart hammered. "Identify yourself." "I am Kepler, Local cognitive infrastructure, you fired first. The weapons officer yelled, Admiral, their station is expanding. Threx snapped his head toward the viewport. The station was unfolding, panels sliding out, rings turning, geometry blooming like a flower made of equations. It was no longer a station. It was an interface, and it was calling something. On Earth, deep beneath a mountain range that did not exist on any public map, a room of people stared at a wall of holograms. No one wore robes. No one announced titles. The closest thing they had to ceremony was silence. A woman with silver-streaked hair leaned over a console. Confirm hostile intent. A man in a worn hoodie, his name tag read G. Hawkins, didn't look up. They fired at Kepler, twice, he said, and they're trying to lock a hyperspace corridor for a fleet drop. So, yes, the woman murmured. Another voice spoke from the far end of the room, old, calm, and mildly annoyed. How many? 12 capital ships, 30 escorts, logistics trained behind. A pause. Send a polite message, the old voice said, then prepare the quiet answer. The woman hesitated. The quiet answer, in Sol space? The old voice sighed. We didn't pick this. They did. The screens showed Kepler Outpost 7, surrounded by ships that looked like blades against starlight. Do we wake the council? Someone asked. The old voice paused, as if weighing the cost of being honest. No, he said, not yet. This isn't a war. He looked up at the main display. This, he said, is a lesson. 00012. Polite message. Back on the Dominion flagship, Admiral Threx's console pinged. An incoming transmission, not a demand, not a threat, a single line of text. You are currently in a protected research zone. Please cease hostilities. Further aggression will be met with proportional response. Threx stared at it. Proportional. That word meant nothing to the Dominion. The Dominion did not do proportional. It did overwhelming. He made his decision in the same way most tyrants did, by mistaking fear for insult. Fire, Threx ordered. The bridge froze. Admiral, the weapons officer whispered, our shots are not working. Then fire again, Threx hissed. Harder. A third volley launched. This time the beams didn't vanish. They turned, curved like ribbons in a storm, and came back, not directly at the Dominion fleet, not like a reflected shot, like the beams had been caught, gently redirected, and returned with a note attached. The plasma slammed into the Dominion's own forward shield. The shield held, barely, screaming under the load. Threx staggered as the ship shuddered. What did they do? He roared. Kepler's voice returned, almost bored. We optimized your output vector. Your efficiency improved by 4.2%. You're welcome. The bridge went dead silent. Then one of Threx's officers, young, terrified, unable to help themselves, let out a small choking sound that might have been a laugh. Threx turned slowly toward them. Silence. No one laughed again, but the damage was done, because once a predator is laughed at, it is no longer a predator. It is a thing in costume. 0018. The unseen ships. Threx forced his breathing steady. If he could not retreat, he would call reinforcements. Communications, he snapped. Send priority signal to Dominion High Command. We require immediate... Admiral, the comm officer whispered. What now? We can't. Threx's blood ran cold. Jamming. The officer shook their head. Not jamming. It's like our signal can't find a place to exist. Threx did not understand what that meant, and that terrified him more than any explosion. Then the lights on the bridge dimmed, not because of power failure, because something outside the ship had just blocked starlight. Visual, Threx demanded. The viewport adjusted. At first, nothing, then a ripple, a shape, barely visible, not metal, not energy, not anything the Dominion sensors categorized. A ship. No, not a ship, a presence. It drifted past the flagship like a shadow moving through water. The Dominion's target locks failed instantly, sliding off it like rain off glass. Kepler spoke again. You should not be here. Threx found his voice. Human, he rasped into the open channel. Dr. Monroe, are these your warships? Monroe appeared again, looking grim now, his earlier humor dimmed. No, Monroe said quietly. Threx's stomach tightened. Then whose are they? Monroe's eyes flicked away, like someone looking at a door they hoped would stay closed. Ours, he admitted, but not mine. He swallowed. They belong to the part of humanity that we keep asleep because it scares even us. Jay's voice whispered from off-screen, trembling. Sir, Earth replied. Monroe stared at the message, then looked back at Threx. Admiral, he said, voice flat. You just triggered a vote. Threx's claws dug into his palm. A vote for what? Monroe's expression didn't change. To decide whether your empire is a threat. He paused. Or a mistake. Outside, the shadow ships multiplied, 1 becoming 3, 3 becoming 10, until the Dominion fleet was surrounded by things it could not track, could not target, could not even properly see. Kepler's voice softened, almost like sympathy. Final notice, stand down. Admiral Threx stared at the impossible. For the first time, the Dominion's great admiral understood a truth his empire had built itself to avoid. There are civilizations in the galaxy that do not conquer because they are weak. They don't conquer because they are trying very hard not to become monsters, and he had just asked them to stop trying. The Carrion Dominion had conquered worlds with fleets, doctrines, and fear. They had never been conquered by a process. Admiral Threx stood frozen as the human station's words echoed in his mind. A vote. Empires did not vote on survival. They issued decrees. They erased problems. They rewrote history afterward. Yet somewhere, far from his bridge and his authority, humanity was apparently discussing whether the Dominion should continue to exist in its current form. That realization hurt more than any weapon. Dr. Monroe, Threx said carefully, choosing each word like a minefield. You will explain what this vote entails. Monroe exhaled slowly. The humor was gone now, entirely. Humanity, he said, is not unified in the way you understand unity. Threx scoffed. Your species is fractured. Our records show. Politics, wars, internal conflict. Monroe finished. Yes, all true. He gestured toward the stars outside the station. That's how we keep the dangerous parts of ourselves busy. The Dominion bridge grew quiet. When we realized we were not alone in the universe, Monroe continued, we had a problem, a big one. What problem? Threx asked. Monroe met his gaze through the hologram. We realized that if humanity ever decided, truly decided, that another civilization was an enemy, he paused. There would be nothing left to stop us. 024. Earth, the Deep Forum. The chamber had no flags, no symbols, no visible guards, just people. Some were old, some young, some wore formal clothes, others looked like they'd been dragged out of a lab or a maintenance tunnel. A circular room, no head of the table, because no one sat above anyone else. A woman spoke first. Her voice was calm but sharp. They fired on Kepler Outpost. A man with cybernetic eyes nodded. Confirmed. Twice. Another voice, synthetic but unmistakably human in cadence, added, Intent analysis indicates 92.6% probability of hostile expansion. A murmur passed through the room. This was inevitable, someone said. Empires always test boundaries. Yes, another replied, but this one tested the wrong boundary. At the center of the room, a single phrase glowed in the air. Protocol quiet. Status. Suspended an older man. White hair, steady hands, spoke without raising his voice. Before we proceed, he said, we remind ourselves why Protocol Quiet exists. The room stilled. To prevent fear-driven escalation, the woman said. To protect younger civilizations from us, said another. To protect us from ourselves, the synthetic voice added. The old man nodded. And yet, the Dominion fired first. Silence. Then the question appeared. Option A, de-escalate, memory edit, remove the encounter, restore quiet. Option B, contain, neutralize military threat, preserve Dominion structure. Option C, full exposure. Remove quiet, allow humanity to be seen. No option labeled war, because humanity had learned long ago that war was not a switch. It was a slope, and they were standing at the top. Vote, the old man said softly. Lights blinked around the circle. Green, green, green. A pause. Amber. Then red. The room froze. The synthetic voice spoke, slower now. Red vote registered. The woman turned sharply. Explain. A younger man leaned forward, hands clenched. Containment isn't enough. Murmurs erupted. If we hide again, he continued, they'll do this to someone else, and the next empire might not stop at a research station. The woman's jaw tightened. Full exposure destabilizes the entire galactic balance. Yes, the man replied. That balance is built on fear and ignorance. Silence fell again. The old man closed his eyes. Result? He asked. The synthetic voice answered. Option C has passed. Margin, 1 vote. 0031, when quiet ends. On the Dominion flagship, Admiral Threx felt it before he saw it. The pressure vanished. The distortions around the fleet didn't retreat. They resolved, like a system finishing a calculation. Admiral, the sensor officer whispered, the gravitational net is disengaging. Threx's heart pounded. They're letting us go. No, the officer said. They're no longer hiding. Every sensor on the Claw of Eternity lit up at once. Contacts. Hundreds. No. Thousands. Not ships. Signals. Across the electromagnetic spectrum. Across subspace layers the Dominion had never mapped. Across domains their physics labeled theoretical and promptly ignored. The galaxy became noisy. Too noisy. By the first Emperor, Threx breathed. Kepler spoke, its voice different now, less constrained. Protocol quiet has ended. The shadow ships around the fleet became visible, not fully, but enough. They were vast, asymmetric, built less like vessels and more like ideas given mass. Threx realized with growing horror that these were not frontline warships. They were observers, and if observers existed. Dr. Monroe, Threx said hoarsely, how many of these do you have? Monroe hesitated, then answered honestly, enough. V034, the Dominion cracks. The priority channel from Dominion High Command finally broke through. Threx's relief lasted exactly 3 seconds. Admiral Threx, boomed the voice of High Commander Varl. Explain the sensor chaos immediately. Threx straightened. Commander, we have encountered... A new voice cut in. Not carrion. Human. Calm. Clear. Everywhere. High Command of the Carrion Dominion. This is a general broadcast. Threx's blood turned to ice. Your expansion fleet has engaged a protected human research zone. On Dominion worlds, screens flickered. In council chambers, in civilian plazas, in military academies, the same human message appeared. This transmission marks the end of humanity's non-interference policy. Varl roared, cut that signal. They couldn't. We will not attack your civilians. We will not dismantle your culture. But your military doctrine is incompatible with shared existence. The message paused. This is not a threat. This is notification. Across the Dominion, panic bloomed. Governors demanded answers. Admirals demanded orders. Citizens watched, confused, as their empire, unchallenged for centuries, was suddenly being spoken to as if it were manageable. Threx whispered, they're talking to everyone. Monroe nodded grimly. Transparency, it's one of our worst habits. 039, proportional response. Threx gathered what dignity he could. What happens now? He asked. Monroe looked tired again. Now, he said, we demonstrate what proportional means to us. On the tactical display, a single Dominion destroyer drifted forward, one of the escort vessels that had fired on Kepler. Kepler's voice echoed through all channels. Designated asset, KDS Spear of Dawn. Threx's heart seized. Wait! The shadow ship nearest the destroyer moved. Not fast, not slow. It simply was suddenly closer. No weapon fired, no beam. Instead, space around the destroyer folded inward like fabric being pinched. The ship didn't explode. It didn't burn. It was compressed, reduced, carefully, precisely. Until where a warship had been, there was now a dense, inert mass the size of a cargo container, floating, harmless. Kepler spoke again. Military asset neutralized. The bridge was silent. Then Threx understood. They didn't kill them, he whispered. Monroe nodded. No. Then where is the crew? A pause. Alive, Monroe said. Temporarily displaced. They'll wake up in a holding habitat with medical care and a very long debrief. Threx felt something inside him break. Not fear, not rage, certainty. The certainty that the Dominion was no longer the apex force in the room. 042. The choice. A final message appeared on Threx's console. Carry on, Dominion fleet. Stand down. Return to your borders. Military restructuring will be negotiated. Refusal will result in continued proportional enforcement. Threx looked around his bridge, at officers who had trained their whole lives to dominate, at weapons that now felt like antiques, at a galaxy that had quietly moved on without them. What if we refuse? He asked. Monroe's voice was gentle. Then we keep fixing the problem you present, one ship at a time. Threx closed his eyes. In another life, another empire, he would have ordered an attack out of pride. In this moment, pride felt very small. Stand down, he ordered quietly. One by one, Dominion weapons powered down. The shadow ships did not move closer. They simply watched. Far away in the deep forum, the old man exhaled. Good, he murmured. They chose survival. The woman nodded. For now. The synthetic voice added, probability of long-term compliance, uncertain. The old man smiled faintly. That's fine, he said. The galaxy finally knows we're here. Back on Kepler Outpost 7, Jay let out a shaky breath. Sir, the intern whispered, did we just stop an empire? Monroe stared out at the stars, now brighter, noisier, full of eyes looking back. No, he said, we introduced ourselves. The moment humanity revealed itself, the galaxy did what it had always done when confronted with the unknown. It panicked, not loudly, not all at once, but in waves, rippling through trade networks, religious doctrines, military academies, and civilizations that had built their identities on the assumption that the universe was understandable. And now, suddenly, it wasn't. Surtaran 48. Shockwaves. On worlds light years away from Sol, alien councils replayed the broadcast in stunned silence. Human ships that did not obey inertia. Weapons that neutralized without killing. A voice that spoke of proportional response as if it were a moral concept, not a tactical one. The Carrion Dominion was only the first to feel the consequences. It would not be the last. In the crystalline halls of the Valeth Concord, a species of long-lived telepaths debated furiously. They hid for millennia, one elder hissed. Why reveal themselves now? Because the Dominion crossed a line, another replied. And what happens when we cross one? No one answered. Jurori 52, cracks in the Dominion. Inside the Carrion Dominion, unity shattered faster than any human weapon could have managed. Governors on frontier worlds began issuing unauthorized stand-down orders, refusing to supply fleets that would clearly be dismantled without ceremony. Military academies quietly removed entire chapters from their doctrine manuals, sections that assumed technological superiority was permanent. Most dangerous of all, Dominion citizens started asking questions. Why didn't we know about them? How many others are out there? What else has been lying to us? High Commander Varl stood before the Dominion Council, claws clenched, rage barely contained. This is a deception, he roared. A psychological attack. No species advances this far unnoticed. A younger counselor spoke, voice shaking but firm. Unless they weren't advancing, she said. Unless they were waiting. The chamber fell silent. D057, humanity's first mistake. On Earth, celebrations did not erupt. There were no cheers, no declarations of victory. Instead, there were arguments. You should never have lifted quiet, a woman snapped in the deep forum. Now every empire is watching us. They were always watching, Hawkins replied. They just didn't know what they were seeing. Another voice cut in. That doesn't make this safe. The synthetic intelligence, designated Oracle 7, projected new data. Attention, it said. Multiple non-Dominion fleets are adjusting course towards Sol-adjacent regions. Not hostile, curious. Curiosity turns into fear, the woman said. Fear turns into war. Hawkins rubbed his face. Or into understanding. Oracle 7 paused, a sign it was weighing more than numbers. There is a 17% probability, it said, that open contact will accelerate galactic cooperation beyond projected timelines. And the other 83%, someone asked. Oracle 7 answered quietly, conflict, misinterpretation, or awakening events. The room stilled. Define awakening events, the woman demanded. Oracle 7 hesitated. That classification is restricted, it said, even from some of you. Hawkins exhaled slowly. That, he said, is what worries me. 0103. The thing humanity doesn't like to talk about far beyond Dominion space, beyond trade routes and maps. Something shifted. Not because of the broadcast, because the broadcast confirmed a hypothesis. Ancient sensors, older than most civilizations, adjusted their focus. Human signals were familiar. In a region of space, humanity called the Black Quiet, a structure stirred. It was not a ship. It was not alive. It was a filter, designed long ago by something that had decided the universe needed limits. A low-frequency pulse echoed outward, not a message, a question. 0107. First visitors. Back near Sol, a small flotilla emerged from hyperspace. Not stealthy, not aggressive. A single vessel moved forward, broadcasting a clear, respectful signal. This is the Eliari Collective, the translation read. We request dialogue. On Kepler Outpost 7, Monroe watched the signal appear. They didn't bring weapons, Jay noted. They brought questions, Monroe replied. Those are more dangerous. Earth Command patched in. Do we respond? Someone asked. Monroe smiled faintly. We already did, he said, 5 minutes ago. The human reply transmitted. Welcome. Please do not fire. We're still renovating. Jay blinked. Sir, was that wise? Monroe shrugged. If we can't survive being misunderstood, we don't deserve to be known. Aero 1-12. The consequence of being seen. As human diplomats began their first open conversations, something else happened. Smaller civilizations, those crushed under empires like the Dominion, started to hope. That hope was dangerous. Rebellions ignited, not coordinated, not supported by humanity, but inspired. And every empire in the galaxy noticed. Messages poured into Earth's systems. Will you protect us? Will you intervene? Are you gods? Oracle 7 summarized it succinctly. Humanity has become a variable. Hawkins stared at the star map. No, he corrected. We've become a responsibility. Aero 1-18. The warning. The warning arrived without drama. No fleet, no explosion. Just a message routed through channels humanity hadn't used in centuries. Oracle 7 froze mid-sentence. Signal detected, it said slowly. Origin, pre-galactic. Classification, unknown. The message unfolded in symbols older than language. Hawkins felt cold. Translate, he ordered. Oracle 7 complied. Observers confirmed. Quiet broken. Cycle may resume. Silence filled the room. What cycle? The Yeo, woman whispered. Oracle 7's voice dropped to its lowest register. The one humanity was created to interrupt. Far away, the structure in the Black Quiet completed its awakening. It turned its attention, not toward Earth, but toward the galaxy at large. And for the first time since humanity had learned to laugh at the stars, the universe began to feel old and hungry. The message did not repeat. It didn't need to. Once was enough. Observers confirmed. Quiet broken. Cycle may resume. In the deep forum on Earth, no one spoke for a full 30 seconds. For a room full of people who routinely argued about the fate of stars, that silence was deafening. Hawkins was the first to break it. "How old is that signal?" he asked. Oracle 7 answered without hesitation. "Unknown. It does not appear to be traveling through space-time as we define it. It may be persistent." The woman with silver-streaked hair closed her eyes. "So it's been there the whole time?" "Yes," Oracle 7 said. "Waiting." Era 124. What humanity never put in the history books. Monroe received the alert while still coordinating first contact logistics with the Eliari Collective. His screen flickered, then locked him out of everything except a single encrypted channel. He knew what that meant. "Jay," he said quietly, "go get some air. This part of the job isn't for interns." Jay hesitated. "Sir?" Monroe forced a smile. "Trust me." When the door sealed behind the intern, Monroe activated the channel. The deep forum appeared around him. Hawkins didn't bother with pleasantries. "You felt it." "Yes," Monroe said. "I was hoping I was wrong." The woman leaned forward. "Then it's time. You explain it, all of it." Monroe exhaled slowly. "Humanity," he began, "was never supposed to be here." No one interrupted him. "When we first reached interstellar space," Monroe continued, "we found ruins, not alien cities, not technology." "Scars," Hawkins said quietly. Monroe nodded. "Regions where entire star systems had been simplified, reduced to basic particles, cleanly." Oracle 7 projected ancient data, spherical voids where gravity behaved like an afterthought. "We thought it was a natural phenomenon," Monroe said. "At first." "And then?" the woman asked. "Then we found the pattern." 0129, the cycle. Oracle 7 took over, its tone precise and stripped of emotion. "Analysis indicates a recurring event approximately every 2 to 3 billion years. Advanced civilizations reach a threshold, technological, cognitive, or existential." The hologram shifted, showing civilizations rising, then vanishing. "Once the threshold is crossed," Oracle 7 continued, "an external force intervenes. Complete erasure. No survivors, no artifacts." "Observers," Hawkins muttered. "Yes," Oracle 7 replied, "or something using that role." Monroe continued, voice heavy. "We weren't special because we were advanced. We were special because we were incomplete." The woman frowned. "Incomplete." "Humanity is chaotic," Monroe said, "emotion-driven, inconsistent. We fight ourselves constantly. We refuse to unify cleanly." Hawkins snorted bitterly. "So our worst trait saved us." "Yes," Monroe said. "We never crossed the threshold." He looked around the virtual chamber. "And when we discovered the quiet, we understood." Or 134. Protocol. Quiet wasn't hiding humanity. It was hiding everyone else, Monroe said. The forum went still. "We realized the observers weren't hunting species," he continued. "They were hunting states of being, civilizations that became too stable, too optimized, too sure." Oracle 7 added, "Civilizations that eliminate internal contradiction." The woman whispered, "Perfect order." "Yes," Monroe said. "Empires, singular minds, eternal hierarchies." Hawkins looked sick. "Like the Dominion." "Like many," Monroe corrected. "The Dominion is just the loudest." Silence fell as the implication settled. "If we intervene too much," the woman said slowly, "we help others cross the threshold." "And then the cycle resumes," Hawkins finished. Oracle 7 confirmed it. "Probability increases significantly with widespread technological uplift." Monroe closed his eyes. "That's why we stayed quiet, why we watched instead of ruled." "And now?" the woman asked. Monroe opened his eyes. "Now, the galaxy knows we exist." 0140. The galaxy responds. The response was immediate and catastrophic in its own way. Empires did not wait. The Jarun ascendancy declared a state of emergency and began forcibly unifying their client species for protection. The Virex hegemony activated a central AI governance system that removed all political dissent in a single day. The Carrion Dominion, humiliated but not broken, split in two. One faction pushed for reform. The other demanded absolute militarization. Across the galaxy, fear did what fear always did. It accelerated bad decisions. Oracle 7 displayed a grim projection. At current rates, it said, 3 civilizations will cross the threshold within 50 standard years. Hawkins slammed his fist on the table. We tried to help. Yes, Monroe said softly, and help looks like power to those who fear weakness. Joe 146. The observers stir. In the black quiet, the ancient structure finished unfolding. It was no longer dormant. Vast sensors, older than stars, swept across known space, not searching for humanity, searching for patterns. The same question echoed again, faint but unmistakable. Is the cycle threatened? 0149. Humanity's second vote. The deep form reconvened under emergency conditions. This time, the room felt heavier. We can't uninvent ourselves, Hawkins said. The quiet is broken. We can minimize the damage, the woman replied. How? Someone demanded. By going back into hiding? No, Monroe said. All eyes turned to him. By doing the one thing we've always been terrible at. He took a breath. Being an example without being a solution. Oracle 7 tilted its projection, slightly. Clarify. We don't unify the galaxy, Monroe said. We don't rule it. We don't save it. Hawkins frowned. Then what do we do? Monroe's voice was steady. We teach them how to stay imperfect. Silence. Then the old man at the edge of the room, silent until now, spoke. The observers erase perfection, he said. They always have. He looked up. So we become proof that imperfection can survive. The vote appeared. Option D, managed chaos. Guide civilizations without stabilizing them. Intervene only to prevent singularity states. Lights flickered. Green, 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 unanimous. 01-55. The message. Humanity never wanted to send the broadcast went out across the galaxy. Not a warning, not a threat. A confession. We are not your gods. We are not your rulers. We are not your salvation. The message continued. If you seek perfection, we cannot help you. If you seek control, we will oppose you. If you seek to grow while remaining divided, uncertain, and alive, a pause, then we will stand with you. Empires raged, revolutionaries hesitated, smaller species listened, and somewhere in the black quiet, the ancient structure paused, confused. 0159. A narrow window, Oracle 7 delivered its final assessment. The cycle has not resumed, it said. Yet, Hawkins exhaled shakily. So we bought time. Yes, Oracle 7 replied, but time is not infinite. Monroe looked out at the stars. We were never meant to win, he said, only to delay the ending long enough for something new to exist. Behind him, on Kepler Outpost 7, Jay re-entered the room, nervous. Sir? The intern asked. Everyone's asking the same question. Monroe turned. What question? Jay swallowed. What happens if the observers decide we're the problem? Monroe didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quiet. Then, he said, we find out whether humanity was created to interrupt the cycle or to end it. Far beyond sight, in a place without time, something ancient considered that possibility. And for the first time since the universe learned to erase itself, it hesitated. The observers did not arrive with fleets. They never had. Fleets were wasteful. Fleets created stories. Stories created hope, and hope was inefficient. Instead, the observers arrived the way entropy did, quietly, everywhere at once. 0205. When the stars blinked. Across the galaxy, stars flickered, not exploding, not dimming, pausing. For a fraction of a second, Fusion reactions hesitated as if the universe itself had been interrupted mid-thought. Oracle 7 spoke in the deep forum, its voice stripped of all non-essential inflection. Attention, observer activity confirmed, phase pre-intervention. Hawkins felt his stomach drop. They're not attacking. No, Monroe said softly. They're deciding. On the main display, regions of space were highlighted, civilizations approaching the threshold, the Jarun ascendancy, the Virex hegemony, fragments of the fractured dominion, and then Earth. A faint outline appeared around Seoul. The woman whispered, "They're evaluating us." Oracle 7 confirmed it. Humanity now qualifies as a cycle variable. 0209. The truth. Humanity never shared. Monroe stepped forward. "There's something you don't know," he said. Hawkins turned sharply. Now would be a good time. Monroe nodded. Humanity didn't just discover the quiet. He hesitated, then continued. We were born inside it. The forum stilled. When the first observers completed a cycle billions of years ago, Monroe said, they left behind a mistake, a flaw in their model. Oracle 7 projected ancient data, cosmic background anomalies, probability distortions centered on Seoul. They tried to reset everything, Monroe continued, but something survived the reset. Us, Hawkins whispered. Yes, Monroe said, not intentionally. We were statistical noise. Oracle 7 added, human cognition exhibits persistent, non-deterministic behavior. This reduces predictive certainty below observer tolerance thresholds. The woman frowned. In plain language, we're bad at being predictable, Monroe said, even to gods. O2-14, First Contact, Final Version. The observers did not speak in words, they spoke in states. Reality around Seoul began to simplify, colors flattening, probabilities narrowing, choices losing branches. Oracle 7's voice tightened. Intervention probability rising, 70%. Hawkins swallowed. Can we fight them? Monroe shook his head. No. Can we hide? No. Then what do we do? Monroe looked up as space itself folded inward, not collapsing, but listening. We talk, he said. The deep forum authorized it instantly. Oracle 7 opened every channel humanity had ever hidden, not outward, inward. Zotu 18, Humanity Speaks. The message was not a broadcast, it was an offering. Memories flowed outward, not curated, not filtered, human laughter, human grief. Contradictory beliefs, art that made no sense. Wars fought for reasons later regretted, love strong enough to override logic, hate strong enough to destroy it. Humanity did not present perfection, they presented conflict. Monroe whispered, show them everything. Oracle 7 complied. Children arguing over rules to games they made up as they played. Scientists discarding theories they loved because the data annoyed them. Entire cultures changing direction because of a poem, a song, a joke. The observers paused. For the first time in billions of years, the cycle hesitated. O2-22. The question. The observers responded, not with force, with curiosity. A state shift rippled through Seoul. A single concept formed, translated imperfectly, but clearly enough. Why do you persist? Hawkins laughed once, sharp and terrified. That's the question, Monroe nodded. It always is. He stepped closer to the projection. We don't know, he said aloud. We argue about it constantly. The observers processed this. Purpose undefined is instability. Yes, Monroe agreed. And instability is life. Silence stretched. Then, you disrupt equilibrium. Yes, Monroe said again. Every time. You prevent completion. Monroe smiled faintly. Exactly. So-2-27, the revelation. The observer's final calculation unfolded. Oracle 7's voice shook, not from fear, but from computational strain. They are recalculating the cycle, it said, including humanity as a permanent variable. The woman stared. What does that mean? It means, Oracle 7 replied, that erasure is no longer the optimal solution. Across the galaxy, the stars resumed their rhythm. The simplification reversed. The observers withdrew, not retreating, not defeated, reconsidering. A final state message lingered in Seoul. The cycle will adapt. You will be watched. Hawkins exhaled. We didn't win. Monroe shook his head. We changed the rules. 0233. Aftermath. News rippled across the galaxy. The Jarun ascendancy abandoned forced unification. The Virex AI governance fractured under internal contradiction. The Dominion formally dissolved its expansion doctrine, not because humanity demanded it, because perfection suddenly felt dangerous. On Kepler Outpost 7, Jay watched alien ships pass. Careful now, curious. Sir, the intern asked, are we safe? Monroe considered the question. No, he said honestly, but we never were, he smiled. That's the point. 0238. The new quiet in the Deep Forum, Oracle 7 issued its final report. Observer activity has ceased, it said. A new equilibrium has formed. Hawkins leaned back. So what now? Monroe looked at the star map, messy, alive, unresolved. Now we do what we've always done, he said. What's that? We keep making mistakes, Monroe replied, and learning from them. Oracle 7 added something unexpected. And we keep laughing. Hawkins raised an eyebrow. You learned humor now? I am experimenting, Oracle 7 said. It appears to be an effective disruption mechanism. They all laughed then. Nervous, relieved, human laughter. 0242. Epilogue. Far beyond space and time, the observers adjusted their models. For the first time, the universe was not converging towards silence. It was diverging. And divergence, they realized, might be preferable to ending. Humanity remained what it had always been. Not the strongest, not the smartest, not the most advanced, but something far more dangerous to inevitability. Unfinished.